Hey, Amie,
Yeah, Juan.
give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amie Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You are listening or watching Baseball Shangri-La. If you're listening on the audio portion of the show, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Rate us, write us a review, help spread the word. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments. We love engaging with you. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media, on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. Amie, ¿cómo estás?
Oh my gosh, long time no talk. I'm still in mourning, but it's good to see you.
So the police didn't get you?
No, they're after David Wants a Taco.
Damn. Hey, David Wants a Taco. Check in with us. Let us know that you're okay. We're concerned. We are concerned. Amie, you mentioned in the last episode, and I just want to touch on it real quick. We lost James Earl Jones. And so I saw a lot of stuff on social media. Obviously, James Earl Jones is known as the voice of Darth Vader. He is the voice of, is it Mufasa?
That's why I have my Leia braid today. But yes, Mufasa.
So I got to see, I was looking on Twitter and there were a lot of people sharing. So I just wanted to get your attention, Amie, or not your attention. I'm sorry. I wanted your opinion on
you have
how.
It.
Thank you. I look what you did there. What are you going to remember James Earl Jones most for?
First and always the voice of Darth Vader. Like that is the voice of my childhood. But probably movie-wise, like I know he was only in the end of The Sandlot, but I really love that character that he plays. Like when even though he's playing a blind man and he's obviously not blind, but when he gets a kick out of sharing all of his Dodgers memorabilia and you just see him smile when he's talking to the kids, like that makes my heart grow like 5 sizes. I love that scene in that movie. And he was such a great actor. And he got 93 good years, but man, he was pretty amazing. What about you? What do you think of him for?
I wanted to bring it up because you think about it, he's in 2 of probably the most popular baseball movies out there in terms of The Sandlot. The other one that I saw a lot of pictures of was Field of Dreams. For me, it's funny. When I think of James Earl Jones, I don't think of movies. Yes, I get it. He's Darth Vader and all that stuff. But he has this amazing voice, right? And I think he's probably always going to be. Go ahead.
Which, to be fair, when they took the helmet off of Darth Vader in the end of the one movie, I can't remember it right now. Don't shoot me. It's been a long day, guys. But when they took the helmet off, and I was like, that's not James Earl Jones. Like that scarred me as a kid. I was like, oh, the disconnect.
Have you seen Chasing Amie?
I have.
I love my favorite joke in Chasing Amie, and the worst insult was when they take off Vader's mask and he's a white guy. Yeah, so the thing, obviously he has that great voice, but one of the things that happened is, of course, when Star Wars, the whole phenomena came on, it's like that's what James Earl Jones was known for. And you lost sight of the fact that James Earl Jones, prior to that, was a hell of an actor. If anybody ever seen The Great White Hope, it was a Broadway play, it was a movie of it. James Earl Jones is a hell of an actor. But for me, the one thing that whenever I think of James Earl Jones, is his stage production of Fences. So there is a movie version of it with Denzel Washington. Denzel also
and Viola Davis, I believe.
Yeah. And Denzel did do a stage production of it, but James Earl Jones did one in the 80s, and I love that play, and he was so good. And so whenever I think of James Earl Jones, I think of Fences. And in particular, I think of that performance. And I'm just reminded of the guy was not just a voice. He was a hell of an actor. And you're right. 93 years is he lived a good life. He had an amazing run. And so our hats off to baseball. That was my bad James Earl Jones impression.
That was a great try. Good job.
Thank you,
Here's your T-ball trophy.
Thank you. I appreciate the support. All right. So on this episode, we're going to talk about a couple of things. We kept hinting at it on the last episode. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about pitching. But before we get to pitching, I do want to start about some, and it's a story. We talked about it last week, so I kind of want to follow it up. We were talking about front offices and how complacent they are. I saw something last week that really bummed me out, Amy, and it went viral. And that was the videos of the I call it Comiscular. I don't even know what it's called. I don't know if it's still US Cellular or what the name is of the White Sox stadium. But there was less than
I don't think the people who attended probably know either.
exactly. There was less than 100 people in the stadium. And while it's so easy because there were so many of those memes that they show Miguel Vargas crying, or like people like, oh, I feel bad for Miguel Vargas. He went from Dodger Stadium to now over there with the White Sox. It bummed me out, Amy, because I don't think this is a good look for Major League Baseball. I don't think people should be relishing in the fact that this is the third largest market in the United States. And I get that there are two teams in Chicago, and I get that the Cachorros are always going to be number one in Chicago. I get that. The White Sox are kind of like the Angels are out here in Southern California. But all my dearest friends in Chicago, they're all White Sox fans. And it was very depressing to hear them when I sent these pictures to them going, hey, what, like, are they boycotting? Is that why the stadium?
Do we have an Oakland A's situation over here?
Yeah, I genuinely wanted to know. I was like, what's going on over? Why aren't people going to Sox games? And it was, my friends told me, it's like, people don't care anymore. They don't care about the Sox. And that to me is bad. That is very bad. And it's something that I wish Manfredi would really take a look into. So from what my boys in Chicago are telling me is that the White Sox at the end of the season are going to clean house in there. Not only just in terms of maybe the front office, but they're talking about the minor leagues. They're talking about they are going to be firing coaches in the minor leagues. Like it might be a complete rebuild there because the product is just, I mean, this was a team that when they won the World Series, and this has been over 100 years for them, there are a lot of people in Chicago that had lived their life that never saw the Cachorros win or the Medias Blancas win a World Series. And then the Medias Blancas did it before the Cachorros, right? So, and this is Jerry Reinsdorf is the owner. This is a guy who owns the Chicago Bulls. He owned the Chicago Bulls when Michael Jordan was playing. So he knows what it takes to put a winning team together. But I think what has happened in Chicago is so sad and it's so depressing. And I know that you have harped on this, and I couldn't agree more with you, Amy, on this. This whole talk about expansion, you can't even get teams that are already in the league right now to be competitive and put a product on the field that the fans are willing or want to go see. There needs to be some checks and balances there in terms of how are you running your team? Why are you to me it was
the fact that we hear here in California that we're hearing that their clubhouse is so horrible, that it's so toxic. Is that true? I don't know, but that's what's making it our way. And that's just talking about the clubhouse. That's not a good look. And the fact that you can't put butts in seats, like, what are we doing? Because this, to me, I think that's not fair to the fans. It's not fair to the players. We're about to talk about the Oakland A's in a second, but it's not okay for what you're charging people or what you're taking from the luxury tax, like that, just that whole, like, you know, I can't even think of the word, but basically that whole pot of money that everybody's putting in, and you're not, like, you're doing a disservice to that entire market, to the fans, to the players, to the people in that clubhouse. It's just not okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things because look, I asked my boys, I was like, well, when the Dodgers were playing the Medias Blancas, it looked like the stadium was pretty full. And they all told me, yeah, those were all Dodger fans, dude. It was all Dodger fans that came to Chicago and went to that game because other than that, Nobody goes to White Sox games because nobody cares. And I think that is what the danger is once a fan, like I say this all the time, you can't hurt me because I'm a Raiders fan. Okay. The Raiders have been horrible for 24 years, going on 25 years. They lost, they blew a game to the Chargers. And I wouldn't even say they blew a game. They had no business winning that game. And everybody's like, well, aren't you mad? I was like, I know Philip Lopez, the ghost of Al Davis, Mr. Raider, I know he still cares and he's very upset. But for me, I'm just completely like oblivious to it. Like it doesn't faze me. I'm numb to it.
I don't
And
want
that
to
is
diminish the football fans though, but like you only have so many weeks of football. As a baseball fan, you've got 162 games. If you have a team that can't win, because I mean, it's not just the team. We just got Kopech from there. He played his heart out on that team, but if your team surrounding you can't pull together a win, it doesn't constitute anything. So what do you do in those? Like as a fan, do you continue to show up and hope? Or at what point do you stop? Like, well, I just love baseball. I just want to go see a game, but oh, my team might not win again. Like, how do you reconcile that when you're a sports fan?
You know, I look, if fans are not going because they don't want to support it, or more importantly, because that's really the only voice that fans have is their dollar, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're willing to, that's what they'll listen to. So, like, I am a person who participated in the McCourt Bank protest. Like, I boycott. I refused to go to Dodger games once I realized that guy was stealing money from the team to finance his own lavish lifestyle. So to me, I'm like, I am not going to give him more of my money when he's not putting it back into the team. And it sucked. I loved going to Dodger Stadium, but I wasn't going to go. So if White Sox fans are doing this because they're trying to force Reinsdorf into change, to be like, put a competitive product on the field. That's what we want to see. I'm all for it. I think it sucks that the stadium is empty, but I think those people deserve to see a team that is competitive, to see a team that is fun to watch. I want people to go to baseball games.
And there's so much history there. Like that, like it's not just one of the teams that started up in the last, 30, 40, 50 years. That team has history, even if that history is a little bit black with the Black Sox scandal and whatnot. It's still history. And to come to this point where people aren't even going to games, that's where like we do break out the soapbox of, wait, you want to, we've already expanded the wild card. Now you want to add expansion teams. And we've got this situation. We've got the Oakland A's situation. We've seen them boycott their team. They are actively boycotting. And they love that team. Like that, it breaks my baseball heart because it shouldn't be like this. If you own a team, then do something with it. If you don't want to, I would even say borderline Angels, because I feel bad for those fans too. Then sell it, get the money, get your big payout, but give it to somebody who wants to do something with it.
No, I agree 100%. And we're going to bring in the Oakland A's into this now, because what I don't want to happen is what's happening in Oakland, because you have an update to that story, Amie. I don't want Manfredi and the rest of Major League Baseball to wait for things to get so bad with the White Sox. But give us the update that you have on the Oakland story.
Yeah, so Susan Slesser wrote an article in the San Francisco Chronicle, and it's basically just outlining all of the challenges with this move to Sacramento. So if they're going to play at the stadium that the River Cats play out, first of all, they're displacing the current minor league team. They showed up ready to work in their weight room, and construction had already started and nobody gave them the memo. Like communication got crossed. So it's already, again, back to what you were saying, not a good look. But some of the big concerns are when, I don't know if you've been to Sacramento in the summer. I lived there for 17 years. It gets up to 100, 110 degrees. Granted, it's a dry heat, so there's no humidity, but it's hot for the majority of the summer. And they don't have a roof over that minor league stadium. Now, they are doing demolition on it. They're going to put in artificial turf because with the degrees and the amount of play that's going to happen on that field, they can't have live grass. So with artificial turf, now you have it getting to 120, 130 degrees on the field. So if we're looking at how do you protect players' health and safety, that's a big factor. The temperature, the wear and tear on the body just because of the artificial turf alone, not even talking about the temperature itself. And then the access into the field. There's not a lot of access to River Cat Stadium. Like you're going kind of behind the Delta. It's right outside of downtown in West Sacramento. But they're talking about how are they going to even get the teams in there to get access to the stadium. Like there's so many things that they haven't thought up as far as the facilities being up to standard, not only pushing the River Cats out of their own park, but taking into consideration, are free agents even going to want to play there for the next 2 to 3 years that they're there until the stadium potentially in Las Vegas is ready, if that's even where they settle at. So a lot of challenges there. And then the African American Sports and Entertainment Group now owns both halves of the Coliseum in Oakland as of a deal that went through last week. So there are talks kind of going around of could they potentially work out a lease with the Oakland A's and have them stay in the Coliseum, but because they won't take ownership over until the end of the month, nobody can even go into like, is that a potential? So there's, as you can see, there's kind of a lot going on with that situation, but all of it doesn't feel like it's a good look. There's not really any positives there.
Oh my gosh, Amie, what a mess. Can you imagine? Because I don't know if you've seen, but that last game at the Oakland Coliseum, tickets are going through the roof, right? They raised the ticket prices because it's supposed to be the last game in Oakland. Can you imagine? They make money off of that last game, thinking it's the last game of Oakland, and then all of a sudden they renegotiate a deal to have them stay in Oakland. This is what I'm talking about.
I think that's a small price to pay in the grand scheme, though, if the fans get to keep their team there. I mean, it sucks. That's bad business, but
this is horrible. I mean, this is not how you should be conducting business. And this is why I want to make sure that this gets fixed now. So we don't have a situation like this happening to it. Because what it sounds like right now is people are putting up their hand going, no one, hey, you got to pay attention to this because nobody knows what they're doing over here.
Well, and the MLB hasn't said anything. The Players Association is in a wait and see kind of stance, according to the article. And there were a couple of people, I think Reese Hoskins is from the Sacramento area, that were commenting that it's a sleeper of a town and it's worthy of a big league team. The article brings up, like, yes, they have the Sacramento Kings there as far as basketball, but that doesn't necessarily make it, an MLB caliber team, like a town. Even if they're coming into Sacramento, again, parking becomes an issue. And we've already got, I think when we looked at this a couple weeks ago, the capacity is like 14 or 15,000. So yeah, they're going to have sellouts, and that's going to make, the team some kind of money, probably more than they're making right now. But at the same time, if you don't have facilities up to standard, ways to get your players in, places for people to park, it's not easy to get in and out of there. Like, then what are we doing? Like, sleeper of a town or not, is this really a good fit when, there's either better options, you either negotiate better in the city that you're in, and it also just comes back down to, why are we looking even into expansion teams when we cannot take care of the teams that we have right now?
Well, I think that's the number one concern, is the facility. I think that is the chief concern. That should be the priority right now, is getting them in a major league ready facility where players can play the game. It won't affect the quality of the game. It won't put their safety in jeopardy.
We were playing in 103 degrees for one game. I think it was 100 degrees on Saturday. It's a couple games. It's the anomaly of September, right? This is all of summer. It starts early and stays that, like, you live in your house with air conditioning on all summer because it's too hot to go outside. And we want players to play in that. Not even the home team, but the visiting teams to come in and play in that. It breaks my heart that this is what it's come to. And it's not just like, oh, it's one summer, we'll just leg it out. It's 3 years potentially. And that's assuming that we have a solution with Las Vegas or wherever they end up going. Oh, there's a huge spider on my curtain. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to freak out. But that's just, assuming that they have a stadium that's ready for them. Because what happens if it's not? What if they can't get this deal in Las Vegas solidified? Are we assuming they can build the stadium in 3 years? What if they don't?
Yeah, it's look, we're going to continue to watch this space the same way that Amie is watching that giant spider on her curtain.
Oh my God.
And we'll continue to keep you updated on it. I'm not very confident that this is going to end well, and I'm really dreading if it ends up becoming a mess. It's just again, Manfredi's the one digging his own grave in terms of his legacy here.
But legacy, schmegacy, like who? Okay, but he's not going to have a great legacy. He solidified that with the 2017 World Series and the handling of that. We already know, and everything after is just piling on. Legacy goes out the window. Try not to break baseball anymore on your way out. And I tend to be pretty positive. I couldn't find a positive in here. Like, there is not a single positive in this story unless, even for Sacramento, like, great, yeah, you guys are getting a major league team for a couple years. But are you going to break the players in the interim? Like, that's, I don't know. Where's the positive one? You find it.
I don't have it. I don't have it, but we will continue to watch this space and keep you up to date on it. I want to, hey, the cops are back, ladies and gentlemen.
They see the size of this huge spider just prancing around my curtain like he owns the place. He doesn't even pay rent here.
For our listeners, just to give you some perspective, there is a spider the size of a Buick inside of Amie's studio. So, Amie, let's segue to another topic that I want to. We talked about this in the first episode, but Jack Harris of the Los Angeles Times wrote a really, really great article, and I really encourage everyone to go ahead because it's a really long article. We're not going to get into all aspects of the article, but I do want to give him credit for it. It is a great piece, and it's worthy. Look, you can get deals all the time on the support newspapers, support journalism, because other than that, you have team-run media, guys, and I don't know if you're going to get the truth from team-run media, but the article that he wrote focuses on pitching problems.
Read it all and come to your own conclusions.
There you go. Don't take our word for it, right? The article focuses on the pitching problems, and in particular, the Dodgers pitching problems, going as far as to saying that maybe the Dodgers are the epicenter of all the pitching problems in Major League Baseball. Amie, you want to set it up some more, or you want to get right into it?
I mean, the majority of the beginning of the article is focused on velocity, and they're talking about essentially Walker Buehler as he was making his way into the big leagues. He had you have the two paths, and one was to continue pitching the way that he did and hope he made it into the big leagues, and the other was, okay, let me tweak my pitching style and learn how to throw harder. And he even said in the article, like, looking back, can you make that distinction of like, well, maybe I could have made it on my own style, but if he hadn't, made that change, he may never have made it to the big leagues at all. And so, injuries aside, you don't know what's going to happen, but the focus was basically on velocity. They did bring up stuff that we've talked about before, all the changes that have been made, the lack of the sticky stuff, the velocity being a predominant factor in today's pitching, the pitch clock, even pitch limits in the minor leagues, the high school level, people who are coming up, and then as you get into the majors, and people just basically not being taught how to get out of jams, seeing pitchers a third time. So we have all of these things that are causing issues, but velocity seems to be the thing that's landing people on the injured list. I don't know. What else did you take from that article before we kind of dive right in?
I love the fact that he kind of uses Walker Buehler as the entry into this article. And so there's some quotes in there that the one that really grabbed my attention was, and you made reference to it, was when Walker Buehler says, "Who knows if I get to the big leagues?" Last 4 years. So the thing is like, I feel like he almost makes a deal with the devil. Like, it feels like Walker Buehler knows, look, this is a risk. I know, because of the fact, like, Walker Buehler's 6'2", right? and again, I know I've mentioned this many times in the past, but Tim Lincecum, who pitched for the Giants, to me is a comp, because a lot of people always made reference to his frame and saying this dude's not going to last. He can't. His body's not going to be able to support this. So it seems that Walker Buehler, knowingly, it's almost the football mentality that I hear from Walker Buehler, where you hear football players talk and they go, look, I know that a concussion, it may be in my future. I know, look, that is the risk of playing football, but I love playing football. I'm going to make a lot of money playing football. I understand that it may not be for a long time, but I can use this money that I make now to set up my future.
And that's a lot of players too, because it's not like many players, I don't want to say come from money, but as we've heard Joe Kelly, a lot of other people talk about, it takes money to make it farther. The more money you have, the better practices, the better trainers, whatever you can get along the way. But there are still some people who come up. I think I was listening to an interview with Teoscar Hernandez about like, this is what everybody like plays for. I know I can put my family in the best situation to win. So whether you have money, don't have money, this is the dream to set yourself up. And we've talked about it before. They're going to have so much wear and tear on their bodies that by the time they retire, and we have kind of a touch up on that later, they're in their mid 30s, late 30s. Their bodies aren't wrecked, but they're not in good condition. They're not going to be like, comfortable for the rest of their lives. And that's the trade-off that they made.
Yeah. Look, I know a lot of it is spent on velocity, but there are some interesting points that he brings up there. So I love the fact that he sets up in regards to the last 4 years, the Dodgers are the most injury prone pitching staff. So as much as Friedman or Brandon Gomes like to sit there and say, well, it's not just us, this is affecting all of Major League Baseball. Yes, it is affecting all of Major League Baseball, but it's affecting you guys the most. Like the Bravos this year probably are as close to the Doyers, and go figure. Who's the guy running the Bravos? He came over from the Dodgers front office. So it's like that same philosophy. So I thought that was really intriguing.
It did show that they were up on the rise across the sport, though. Like there's a lot of graphs on here that are pretty amazing. Like you can see the uptick in injuries, stuff that we've talked about before. I think there's a guy on Twitter and Instagram. His handle is Doyers Dave, but he does a lot of like funny memes. And there's one of all of our pitchers that are on the IL kind of sitting on a couch, and they're like tapping the couch waiting for Gavin Stone to come join them, because there's a ton of guys that are on the injured list. Like we have a MVP caliber injured list right now, and one of the tables that was on there was active roster time versus injured list time. And there are players like Dustin May. He spent 241 days on the active roster, 605 on the injured list. So it goes through a lot of the players like Buehler, Gonsolin, Sheehan, Grove. So all of the newer kids that came up through the farm system, and how much time they've actually spent on the active roster versus being on the IL and, waiting to come back.
I appreciated this about the article, and that he mentions the fact, look, part of the reason why the Dodgers are the most impacted in the last 4 years is because they also sign a lot of pitchers that are injury prone. And he mentions Glasnow. Look, the fact that he mentioned Yamamoto, I know a lot of people will sit there and argue and go, Juan, I don't think that's fair to include Yamamoto because he just came into the league. And it's like, well, that's one of the things you did need to factor in is him coming from Japan. They don't have the same pitching schedule as they do here in Major League Baseball.
Which is what I've been arguing since we brought him over, was that, this is definitely a concern. And I did like that he broke it out into those kind of two paths, whether it was the farm system or people that we brought up versus who the projects that they're working on. And as we've seen, sometimes they work out really great. Tyler Anderson versus the Noah Syndergaards, where it didn't really work out so great. And there were some that he mentioned, like Tommy Kahnle, like he was on the team for the good portion of one season on the injured list, or Jimmy Nelson. I think he mentioned he was on our roster for almost 4 years and barely even played. And we have all these reclamation projects. some of them they fix, some of them they don't, and then now you've got this new crop of kids coming up in the last couple of years. I keep saying kids like I'm this old person, but like just these younger pitchers, and they're getting injured too. And so how it goes back to what we've been talking about, a change needs to happen across the league. The velocity experiment that's been done, while it's great, it gets a lot of strikeouts. Something has to give, because we're burning through these people, and it's from a health factor. Like, that's, if we're worried about stadiums impacting their health and safety, we've got to look at pitching for that too.
You know, he brings up two factors that I don't feel are discussed as much. I think when it comes to this topic, it's always velocity, it's the pitch clock, it's the stickum. But he mentions two things, and they never cross my mind, and I'm curious to see what the impact is on these, because I don't know if these can be related to the organization. The first one was the COVID-19 pandemic and the lingering effects that this long-term disruption did to these players' injuries. There was, that's a period of time where they, these are all creatures of routine. We always hear like they need, and for that short period of time, the routine was completely thrown off. So I haven't heard anyone bring that into play. The other one is a huge one, and this is the one where I say I don't know what the organization can do about this, and that is high pressure youth baseball. The travel ball, the fact that these kids in high school, even before high school, some of these kids in junior high are playing baseball year round. And I've heard the argument in a high school, kids wanting to get their Tommy John in a high school so they can immediately.
Walker Buehler had his before he even came to the majors.
Yeah, he had it. Yeah, absolutely, out of college. So I think that is a huge factor. And so how are you going to, because the whole world, not only just travel baseball, I mean, you could put travel softball, all like basketball, all these, it is the amount of money that is involved in this, the amount of pressure to win, to get attention, to get that respect. I don't know how Major League Baseball can impact youth baseball when it's starting there, and then by the time they come to the minor leagues, like for your example, Walker Buehler, he's already hurt.
Well, but I mean, if you also follow what he said before, he wasn't throwing like velocity till he got in and like had to kind of shift that gear. I guess, I mean, if you're the MLB and you care about this topic, then you can force the change, because we're not going to, if you guys are continuing to do this, then we're not going to draft those players like that. I mean, they're doing it. We talked about that baseball card, that signing away your naming rights and whatnot. Yeah. Well, if you don't sign away your naming rights, then you can't participate in this tournament. Okay, well, if you can do that, then we turn around. If you guys are going to continue to do this, you can't participate in these MLB sanctioned tournaments or whatever. Like, it can't just be one way. So if you need to start instituting change, then take a hard stance on it. But then also when they get to the minors, that's where you start shaping them again. Okay, you have some bad habits. We're going to change that now that you're here. But the MLB has to be willing to make those tweaks right now too, because a lot of these guys, you'll see they used to take some time off in the off season, and now a lot of them are playing like winter ball, and they're not getting a break. So somewhere, someone has to finally step in and make a change. Like, if you are continuing to do a bad habit and you need help, that's where you either get medical attention, you get some kind of intervention. Well, the MLB is the one in this position to do that, since the teams clearly can't do it for themselves right now.
Yeah. The last thing I want to cover is he mentions Rob Hill's name on here. Rob Hill is the minor league director of pitching for the Dodgers. He comes from Driveline Baseball, and the whole weighted ball theory, them throwing the weighted ball. The reason why I found it interesting in the article was Andrew Friedman, when he spoke last week, said we got to look into it. I hope I'm wrong here, because I've interviewed Rob Hill in the past and he seems like a really good dude. I really hope they don't scapegoat him and blame him for all these injuries because, like I said, Jack Harris, read the article, guys. He does a really good job of combining injury-prone pitchers and then River Ryans and the Emmett Sheehan's of the world, and what they're going through. So that's something I want to keep my eye on when Andrew Friedman says they're going to look at it in the offseason. I want to see what they come up with.
This is where I don't understand. This is where I have a different perspective on baseball because I don't feel like there needs to be a scapegoat. If Driveline, Rob Hill, whoever, if this was the way that we were doing it and we're finding it doesn't work, okay, then we just change it. It doesn't have to be a scapegoat. We don't have to fire somebody. Now, I'm not even going to throw in Rob Hill on this, but if someone is like, no, I'm going to go to the mat and I believe this is the way we do it and I will not change, well, then once that enters the conversation, yeah, okay, well, we're going to part ways. But if you go into it, you research and you find, hey, this isn't working, let's make these tweaks and everybody is amenable, I don't think there needs to be a scapegoat. It just, hey, it has reached a head, let's make some changes. And I think we can go forward that way and there doesn't have to be blame. It's just, we went about this, it didn't work, let's try another way.
And that's what I'm curious to see, if that's the approach they take, or if they take in the approach of we need to bring in somebody different to change the philosophy. That's what I want to see. Let's see what happens. But again, this is another story. We're going to watch this space, and we've been giving you updates on this story throughout the year. But definitely check out that story by Jack Harris. He did a wonderful job on it. Amie, just to wrap things up, there is another story that caught your eye. You want to go ahead and set it up?
Yeah, there was another story about basically players that could be saying goodbye after the 2024 season. Like, are we potentially seeing some of these players for the last time? The ones that were mentioned on the list, there were.
And where is this story?
I believe it was MLB.com was where I found it. And hold on, I'm trying to find Will Leitch is the one who wrote it. So it came out on September 3rd if you want to search it. So it's called 9 Veterans Who Could Be Saying Goodbye After the 2024 Season. So
and it was from MLB.com.
MLB.com, yes.
Yeah.
And so basically compiling a list of 9 players, none who are guaranteed contracts before the end of or beyond the 2024 season. And he did go into it saying he was going to exclude Kershaw. He was going to exclude Charlie Blackmon because if they have franchise invites because they've been with the teams for so long, they're kind of exceptions to the cases we've seen with Kershaw. He's kind of year to year. How is he feeling? How is the team feeling? But they mentioned out of the 9, there were 4 Dodgers or former Dodgers on that list. So they mentioned Kevin Kiermaier, who's now playing center field for the Dodgers, but previously had played against us in the 2020 World Series with the Rays. He's already announced at the end of the season that he will be retiring. So this is the last time we're going to get to see him play. And we've already seen everybody who wants to complain about his offense. He is stellar defensively in center field, like does a great job out there. They also brought up Jason Hayward, who is now with the Houston Astros. Justin Turner, who he's 39, playing with the Seattle Mariners, played 9 years with the Dodgers. And then they also mentioned Rich Hill, who I think somebody posted on Twitter a couple weeks ago that you're not middle-aged as long as you have at least one player in the league that's your age. And so Rich Hill is the reason that I'm not middle-aged yet, because we are both 44. So he's in his 20th consecutive MLB season. And the question is, aside from Kevin Kiermaier, who has announced his, will these guys continue to play?
They just DFA'd Rich Hill a couple of days ago.
No. When I grabbed this article on the 3rd, he was still active on that roster.
The Red Sox just DFA'd him, and
what's his stat line look like? Can we pick him up?
As one of my friends said, why did it take this long? To me, Dick Mountain he's the wild card, because Dick Mountain, I think, wants to keep playing. I mean, for him to do what he did this year, like, by all means, I'm like, Dick Mountain's retired, but then you see him, hey, I want to still keep playing.
He's collecting teams at this point. He's on his 15th team. He's half of the teams.
Just keep going, Dick Mountain. Just end up playing for every team in Major League Baseball. That would be awesome.
He's got a 4.91 ERA, which, I mean, it's not great, but it's not horrible.
No, I think with the exception of Kiermaier, of the ones that you brought up, I think those dudes want to keep playing.
Mhm.
Like Jason Hayward, I believe, is in his mid-30s.
He's 35. Oh, I have the ages if you need them. He's 35.
Yeah, give me the so
Kevin
yeah.
Kiermaier's only 34 and he's retired.
I think Kiermaier is more injuries. I think the
Mhm.
injuries are really affecting him, and that's why, like I said, he's the only one that has said, no, I'm done. I mean,
Mhm.
it'd be a great story for him to go out as a World Series champion,
Right.
but Jason Hayward, before he signed with the Astros, said he didn't think he was going to sign with another team this year. He was going to wait until next year to see if he
Mhm.
would get it. So I think a lot of it is, especially with the case with Justin Turner, because I think Justin Turner wants to keep playing, is
Mhm.
will these guys get an opportunity to
Right.
keep playing? Because sometimes, as the saying goes, you don't retire, the game retires you.
Well, that
So,
was
like,
kind of Matt Kemp's thing, right?
yeah. So like Dick Mountain, Dick Mountain wants to keep playing, but it took him well into the year to find a team that was willing to give him an opportunity to play.
He
So
pitched in 4 games this year.
yeah, so I think someone will take flyers on Jason Hayward and on Justin Turner. I don't know about Dick Mountain. I mean, the writing might be on the wall, but I mean,
Do you think he'd be a good reliever in like a postseason situation?
No. Poor Dick Mountain. I just, look, Father Time is undefeated, but what I love about him is that he still has the passion and he still wants to play, and I respect that. I admire that.
Favorite is still seeing him run the bases, and he came home and just kind of spun around and like flopped on home plate, and he put his heart and soul in it, and you got to respect that.
Yeah, exactly. I respect it, but I think in those situations, especially with those 3 players, it's all about, will the team give them an opportunity?
And
Will
that's where I feel like guys feel or men, I should say, men feel the pressure that women feel in everyday life of like, you've hit a certain age, or you're no longer useful to us because you've aged out. And I feel like sports is the place where men feel that, where it's like, we're looking at Kiermaier, he's 34, Hayward's 35. Like, these are young guys. These guys are younger than me. Well, they're younger than both of us. And they're like aged out. These are old players. And it's like, who are you calling old?
you know where I feel that the most is in tennis. Like, she's gonna retire. She's like in her late 20s, and I'm just like, late 20s, like,
I feel like we're bringing out like spinster talk. Like, these gentlemen are spinsters. Like, let's get them. Like, let's.
But I forget, like in tennis, some of these girls have been playing since they were like 14, right? And like competitively, so that is like a huge, period of time. But
well, and like Matt Kemp said, he'd been playing since he was 5. It was hard to leave the game. He couldn't come back to Dodger Stadium for a while because it hurt too much. This is all these guys know. I mean, they may have families, or like in the case of Justin Turner, just starting a family, but this is your life. And it's not like, oh, this is what I do for work every day. Like, I don't know about you. When I leave work, I turn that off and then I go after, my other pursuits, baseball, crafting, friends, whatever. These guys, they like, you live at the ballpark. Your life becomes baseball. Your friends are your fellow baseball players. Like, that's a huge thing to give up. Even if you're quote unquote aging out, like the game is letting you go. Like, God, what a betrayal.
But it might be what you said with the Matt Kemp thing. Some of these guys, they may wait to make decisions. But like I said, I think people will take flyers on Justin Turner and Jason Hayward. But it may be a year or 2 later where we hear Justin Turner's retiring, and you're going to be like, oh, I thought he was already retired, because we don't see him with another team next year. But
okay,
I'm glad you brought it up.
So the management phase of his life can begin. Come back to LA.
I know that's what he wants. I'm just, it's going to be very curious to see in what capacity. I do think like I said, I think he'll be in the Legends of Dodger Baseball, but in terms of him playing in a Dodgers uniform.
You heard it here first. I want that pine tar stain on the back of his blazer.
All right, she's calling it. That's her hot take. She already has a hot take, everybody. Any last words before we wrap things up?
I have none.
All right. She's used them all, and we didn't hear the sirens for the rest of the show.
No,
So-
but now I've got to go hunt a huge spider after this. I hate spiders, so. ugh.
So
Want to come kill a spider at my house, Juan?
So while Amy's reenacting arachnophobia, ladies and gentlemen,
Ugh.
we're going to leave you. We're going to leave you with that. So for those of you who have been listening on the audio portion, please make sure you're subscribed to our podcast. Rate us, write us a review. If you've been watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments. Remember, we're still trying to figure out a way. How are we going to celebrate when Shohei hits 50-50? Leave your suggestions. Let us know. And then make sure you're following us on social media, on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. She is Amie Cuevas. I'm Juan Ramirez. Nos despedimos con un beso. Amie, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, people.